Okay, so you want to join a private beach club. Not a resort. Not a hotel. A gate, a guard, a stretch of sand nobody else is allowed to stand on. But here's the strange part. Most of these clubs have never made a real profit in their entire history, and the waitlist to get in keeps getting longer anyway. By the end of this video, you'll know what the membership actually costs beyond the fee, why the club itself rarely makes money even when it's thriving, and what you're really buying when you buy your way past that gate. You've seen the entry point. A beach club membership at a coastal resort in Nassau runs around $6,750 a year, plus tax, and that only buys you preferred rates and a few days at the private club. That's the cheap seat. Climb one tier, to somewhere like Ocean Reef Club in Key Largo, and the initiation fee alone starts near $150,000, with annual dues stacking another $10,000 to $40,000 on top every year, whether you show up or not. Now go to the top. A full membership at a resort like Albany in the Bahamas can run $500,000 to $1 million in initiation, $50,000 to $100,000 a year in dues, and that's before the club requires you to also own a residence there, where the cheapest condo starts around $4 to $7 million. That same $7 million, sitting in an index fund instead of a beach house, would likely be worth close to double in a decade. For what's being asked, the entry fee is almost the easy part. Because the fee is just the start. Every one of these clubs runs on what looks like a small army you never see listed on the brochure. Marina harbormasters, groundskeepers, lifeguards, private chefs, a concierge desk that knows your name before you say it. That's easily $2 to $4 million a year in payroll for a mid-sized club, buried inside your dues. Hurricane zone insurance on coastal clubhouses has climbed sharply in the last 5 years, and that cost gets passed straight to members through special assessments. One-time bills that can run into the tens of thousands, arriving whether you asked for them or not. Minimum food and beverage spend is another one nobody mentions until the invoice. Miss your quarterly minimum, and the club bills you the difference anyway. So what's the real number? Once you add dues, assessments, minimums, and the real estate carrying cost, a mid-tier beach club membership can quietly burn $200,000 a year before you've eaten a single dinner there. Now we get to the question that actually matters. Where does the money come from? On paper, it looks simple. Dues in, sand and service out. But the actual model runs on 3 separate engines. First, cash flow, membership dues, food and beverage minimums, marina slip fees, event hosting, and increasingly, real estate sales. Because the club itself often makes far more selling you a villa than it does collecting your annual dues. Second, wealth preservation. And this is where it gets interesting. Members rarely buy real estate at these clubs in their own name. It usually sits inside a holding company or family trust, which means the property can be pledged as collateral for a loan without ever being sold. And a loan isn't a taxable event, a sale is. That's how members extract liquidity from a beach house without ever giving it up. Third, and this is the one people miss completely, wealth multiplication, through what I'd call the ownership flywheel. Beach club membership signals net worth, which puts you at the same dinner table as people raising capital, which gets you invited into a private deal, which grows your business, which generates the cash to buy the next asset, a jet, a stake in a hotel group, another club altogether. The beach club was never the destination. It was the entry point to a room. And that's the real pattern across almost every asset the wealthy chase. The object is rarely the investment. The mechanism is. If any of this is the kind of thing that changes shape every time legislation shifts or a market cycle turns, and you'd rather watch that shift happen than read about it after the fact, this channel tracks it as it moves. Because here's what nobody tells you about buying into a beach club. You're not buying the beach. You're buying a stack. Layer 1 is time. Someone else handles the boat, the reservations, the staff. Layer 2 is privacy. A filtered guest list that keeps strangers off your sand. Layer 3 is curated social access. You're not just meeting rich people. You're meeting vetted rich people, screened by an admissions committee before you ever shake their hand. Layer 4 is security, physical and reputational both. Layer 5 is legacy, the right to pass a legacy membership down to your children, sometimes for generations. And Layer 6, the one nobody says out loud, is control over who else gets in. That last layer is the one buyers actually care about most, whether they admit it or not. Every element of the physical club exists to serve that same control. A single guarded entrance, not 3, so every arrival can be checked. An admissions process that requires 2 existing members to sponsor you, so the club filters for social fit before it filters for money. And underneath all of it, a data layer most members never think about. Every dollar you spend on food, drink, and events gets tracked against your minimum, and your spending pattern quietly determines whether you get invited to renew at all. Every gate, every sponsor form, every minimum spend requirement exists to protect one thing: who's allowed to stand next to whom. In 1974, Charles Bluedorn, the Gulf and Western conglomerate chief known as the Mad Austrian of Wall Street, turned a 7,000-acre sugar plantation in the Dominican Republic into what became Casa de Campo, built purely as a private retreat for his own executives and friends, from Frank Sinatra to golf legend Arnold Palmer. It worked because Bluedorn treated the club as a world, not a hotel, curated, closed, self-contained. After his death in 1983, the Fangel family opened it to paying members, and 50 years later it's still one of the most exclusive addresses in the Caribbean. Now look at the other side of this same industry. Tim Blixeth co-founded the Yellowstone Club in 1997, a private membership resort for billionaires, Bill Gates among them, and by 2005 he'd taken out a $375 million loan against the club, quietly pocketing $209 million of it for himself. A federal judge later ruled Blixeth's conduct amounted to what the court called self-dealing. The club collapsed into bankruptcy in 2008. Same model. Same gate. One founder built a world that lasted 50 years. The other one hollowed his out in 8. So here's the question worth sitting with. Was Blixeth a villain, or just the first owner honest enough to treat the club like the cash machine it always was? But this industry does have one real problem, and it isn't the sand. Soho House, the closest thing to a public beach and city club brand, has never turned an annual profit in its entire 28-year history, even while membership keeps climbing. In one recent year it posted a loss north of $160 million, while its debt load grew past $600 million. Myth: a packed waitlist means a healthy business. Reality: membership revenue and profitability aren't the same number, and a club can sell out every seat while bleeding cash from the fixed cost of real estate, payroll, and food service underneath it. That's the 2 mistakes trap almost every club falls into: expanding faster than the brand can stay curated, and letting in enough new members that the exclusive feeling the whole model depends on starts to erode. Let's do the actual math. Scenario 1, the member-owned club, run like Ocean Reef. Initiation of $150,000, annual dues of $12,000, and real estate that has appreciated steadily for 6 decades because the club deliberately caps membership rather than chasing growth. Net result: a stable, if illiquid, asset that compounds quietly for generations. Scenario 2, the growth-chasing model, run like a public club brand. Revenue climbing double digits every year, membership up 20%, and still posting a net loss in the tens of millions because expansion costs outrun what dues can cover. The difference between those 2 outcomes isn't the beach. It's whether the operator optimized for exclusivity or for growth. And yes, Scenario 2 was still the successful one by every headline metric. The same money in a broad market index fund over that same stretch would have compounded without a single special assessment. Eventually, owners exit the same way they entered, quietly. Real estate gets sold back through the club's own broker network, membership gets passed down as a legacy privilege, or, for the corporate operators, the whole company goes private again to escape public scrutiny of its losses. But here's what the owner was actually buying the entire time. Not the sand, not the villa, not even the golf course. Control over the guest list. The stack layer that mattered was never privacy or status on its own. It was the right to decide who else belongs in the room with you. Wait, that's legal? Here's the twist almost nobody reads in the fine print. In most contracts, the membership itself isn't property. It's a revocable license. The club can suspend or terminate it, and the 6-figure initiation fee you paid is gone, non-refundable, the day they do. You don't own your seat at the table. You're renting the right to keep it. If you want to be watching the day one of these clubs goes the way Yellowstone did, this is the kind of story I keep coming back to. If you're the kind of person who needs your money to be liquid within a year, don't buy into this. The whole model depends on you staying long enough for the flywheel to turn. There's always a version of this story that ends in bankruptcy court, and a version that ends 50 years later with your grandchildren still holding the same gate key. Blue Dawn built a world. Blixeth built a withdrawal. Somewhere in the Bahamas right now, a broker is showing a $4 million condo to a man who thinks he's buying a beach.